Prince's last Diddy recording played in trial.
The moment Prince's voice echoed through the courtroom, everything changed. Diddy's composed facade shattered instantly, his expression betraying a mix of shock and unease. It was a haunting recording, the late music icon speaking from beyond the grave. What did Prince say that shook one of the most powerful men in the industry? On day 3 of this explosive trial, no one expected this piece of evidence. But now that it's out, the entire entertainment world is reeling from the revelation.
Cassie said he would get physical. That one male guy who did things for Diddy and Cassie said he witnessed him get physical. Don, so again, we talked about how the domestic charges aren't, what he's being, what he's on trial for. But boy, it's stacking up. And I feel that the jury is going to take that into consideration.
The first Diddy party I went to was at Prince's house. So you want to go to Prince's house to the Diddy party where Tyrese is performing and Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher are swinging on swings. That is what's happening on the other side of the wall. And so the one thing that makes this party different than a Jamie Foxx party or any other celebrity party that wrangles a bunch of young women or guys or whatever too, is that Diddy didn't let you bring your security in the party.
Day 3. The calm before the storm. Day 3 of the trial began much like the 2 before it. Reporters poured into the courtroom, jostling for prime seats. Celebrities slipped in quietly through side entrances, sunglasses on, heads down. Legal teams arrived with their usual air of precision, setting down files, flipping through papers, and preparing for another long day in court. But something felt different, tighter, heavier. The atmosphere buzzed with tension. This wasn't just a packed courtroom. It was electric. Security presence had doubled. Uniformed officers stood guard at every corner, and 4 of them had taken up unusual positions, stationed directly behind Diddy's table. That hadn't happened before. A court insider later revealed that special instructions had been issued that morning, though no one could say what they were. Diddy entered with his usual swagger, dressed in a flawless navy suit. He nodded to supporters and flashed his signature smile. Surrounded by his legal team, he looked calm, confident, even in control. He whispered strategy with his attorneys, completely unaware of the quiet preparations happening at the prosecution's table. Their 2 tech specialists were busy setting up unfamiliar equipment. They checked wires and whispered to the lead prosecutor, who kept stealing glances at Diddy. Not with concern, but with something closer to anticipation. Something was coming. Something big, and only the prosecution knew what it was. The whispers started early. They've got something new. One reporter texted across the room. Something big's about to drop. No one knew what, but everyone felt it. You could cut the tension with a knife. When the judge entered, even his tone signaled that this wasn't going to be a normal day. After the usual formalities, he issued a stern warning. I want to remind everyone that no matter what evidence is presented today, I expect absolute composure. Any disruption will result in immediate removal. His gaze scanned the gallery. Then he looked at the prosecution. The morning's proceedings began routinely enough. The prosecutor walked the court through testimony from earlier in the week, methodically connecting evidence and witness accounts. It was familiar, predictable, but then mid-sentence, she paused. "Your Honor," she said, "at this time, the prosecution would like to present critical audio evidence recently authenticated by our forensic team." She held up a small black device. The defense team erupted in objection, claiming they hadn't been properly notified. A tense sidebar followed, Diddy's lawyers gesturing, whispering urgently. But after reviewing the record, the judge sided with the prosecution. The evidence was disclosed during discovery. The court will allow it. All eyes turned to the prosecutor as she returned to the center of the courtroom and delivered the words that shifted the ground beneath everyone's feet. What you are about to hear is the final private recording made by Prince Rogers Nelson before his death. Gasps rippled across the room. Journalists froze, fingers suspended above their keyboards. Every breath seemed to catch in unison. It was as if time itself stopped. Prince, the legend, the mystery, the voice, was about to speak from beyond the grave. Diddy's lead attorney gripped his arm. His trademark confidence drained from his face like a tide pulling back from shore. The color vanished. The smile was gone. His legal team leaned in, whispering urgently, eyes wide. As the prosecutors connected the device to the courtroom speakers, the silence was deafening. Not a soul dared to move, and in that still moment, before a single word from Prince played, Everything shifted: control, power, confidence. All of it slipped away from Diddy. And from the look in his eyes, he knew exactly what was coming.
I'm just trying to listen. I mean, there's a lot of this stuff that I've heard and seen already. I'm really trying to connect the dots here and think like, damn, what if Prince was what if he caught wind of some, I'll just say allegedly, stuff that Diddy might have been doing that seems to be, like, I ain't talking about consensual things, I'm talking about illegal things or whatever. But I'm just like, would Diddy be that dumb to like not think that Prince, this celebrity, has cameras in his house as well? So I'm just trying to think, like, because if Prince has cameras and he's recording stuff, you know, to get some dirt on Diddy, I don't know. I feel like Diddy, with all his cameras that he allegedly had, or no, they actually found cameras.
Problems?
That I don't know, right? What I know is that he was really health conscious. He was a vegan. He didn't abuse alcohol. I didn't know of him abusing drugs. He worked out, you know, so, you know, that also really concerned me, because it made me think that, wow, so you mean you do all these things to take care of yourself and you die so young?
The voice that shattered everything. What you're about to hear, the prosecutor announced, holding up a small black device, was recovered from Prince's private vault. The courtroom erupted in a wave of shocked whispers. Journalists scrambled to text updates. Heads turned, and bodies leaned forward in unison. This wasn't just another piece of evidence. This was Prince, speaking from beyond the grave. The prosecutor explained that the recording had been made just weeks before Prince's untimely death in 2016. This was never meant for public ears, she said. Prince recorded this as a form of insurance, a personal account of what he witnessed firsthand. And then the room fell silent as Prince's voice filled the courtroom. A woman in the third row covered her mouth and began to cry. It wasn't just the shock of hearing him. It was how he sounded. Gone was the confident performer. Instead, his voice was low, guarded, and heavy with unease. "I'm making this recording because I don't know who to trust anymore," Prince began. The audio was crystal clear. You could hear the deep breaths he took between sentences. This wasn't a performance. This was raw, real, and deeply personal. Then came the part that shifted the energy of the room entirely. Prince began naming names, specific people, dates, and places. At the center of it all, Diddy. He spoke of parties hosted by Diddy in the Hamptons in Miami, the very same events that 3 earlier witnesses had described under oath. I looked at Diddy as the words played. His confident exterior vanished. His eyes widened. His lawyer leaned in to whisper something. But Diddy didn't flinch. He stared straight ahead, frozen. "What happens at these parties isn't just wrong, it's criminal," Prince said. "I've seen how they operate. I've seen who gets involved. I've seen who gets hurt." Each word from the late artist hit Diddy like a body blow, and the impact in the courtroom was seismic. This wasn't hearsay. This was a first-hand account, one that couldn't be questioned, manipulated, or silenced. You can't cross-examine a dead man. You can't threaten him into changing his story. Then came the bombshell. Prince described a party in December 2015. He named guests, 2 of them celebrities who had publicly denied ever attending Diddy's private gatherings. He described the upstairs rooms in shocking detail, details that aligned perfectly with the prosecution's opening argument. The room was silent. Even the judge was leaning in, visibly captivated. Then came the most damning line of all. "I tried talking to him about it," Prince said. "I told him this had to stop. He just laughed and told me to mind my business if I wanted to keep working in this industry." Right then, the prosecutor paused the recording. The IT was masterful, deliberate, and devastating. All eyes turned to Diddy. His carefully maintained composure had shattered. His face had gone pale. His hands, once still, were trembling. His lead attorney slid a yellow legal pad in front of him, trying to shield his reaction from the jury. But it was too late. Everyone had seen it. The moment Prince's voice named him, the moment the dead icon's words exposed what prosecutors had only hinted at, Diddy's entire defense, his posture, his confidence, his illusion of control, crumbled, and the courtroom would never be the same again.
became such a big deal back then is ever since my third album, I wasn't really taking large advances from the recording companies. I was recording the albums myself in my own studio. So the way I looked at it, I owned the work because I paid for it. And I did all the work. I created it, so I felt like it should belong to me. That said, the companies felt otherwise. And they would always hold this contract up and say, well, you signed it. And I say, well, I understand that. It's not like I want to leave. I just want to, talk about this thing and see if we can't make it more fair. Of course, they wouldn't change, because if they changed, they wouldn't really exist. And that's kind of the situation we're in right today. They're not going to exist much longer. But it's not like we're against them or anything like that. The idea is that we find better ways of working with one another. It shouldn't be a situation where they own the album or the work. We're talking about intellectual copyright. If they're going to be indeed a delivery service, then that's fine. But even FedEx doesn't say that they own the thing that they ship.
Cassie Ventura on the witness stand for a fourth day in the federal criminal trial against hip-hop mogul Sean Diddy Combs. The defense continuing cross-examination this morning, confronting her with dozens of her own messages, many explicit, hoping to convince the jury she was an eager sexual partner who matched Combs' desires. I'm always ready to freak off, one message said.
She was into the freak-offs herself and was like a willing participant and was into all the freaky stuff, and essentially that was the crux of what they were trying to do yesterday.
And do you think they proved that or not?
I mean, there's texts like that from 2009, I'm always ready to freak off. There was some other texts where she was referencing like hitting him up about the FOs, is what they were referring to him. To me, like, yes, this doesn't look good, but at the same time, I think the timeline is crucial here. And these are texts from 2009, man. That was when they were first getting in the relationship. She was young. Obviously, they were in the honeymoon stage, and she was stoked to like, oh my God, I'm with Diddy. I'm living this lavish lifestyle. Of course, she's going to be saying things that she knows will curry favor with him to keep it going.
The breaking point, what truly stunned the courtroom, wasn't just Prince's damning words. It was watching Sean Diddy Combs unravel before our very eyes. For 2 full days, Diddy had projected nothing but control. He faced witnesses who pointed fingers directly at him without so much as a flinch. When damaging photographs flashed on the courtroom screens, he remained calm, calmly whispering to his attorneys. Not once had he shown a hint of weakness. But Prince's voice changed everything as the recording resumed after a calculated pause. The transformation in Diddy was immediate and shocking. His lead attorney, a seasoned offender of A-list clients, gently placed a hand on Diddy's arm in a practiced gesture meant to steady him. But Diddy recoiled violently, knocking over a glass of water in the process. It splashed across the defense table, drawing the jurors' attention. Several of them exchanged glances, their composed faces giving way to surprise. The man who built a billion-dollar empire on composure, control, and cool was visibly coming undone. A courtroom sketch artist later told reporters she had never seen someone's body language shift so dramatically in the span of a few minutes. Diddy's breathing grew erratic. Even from the back rows, people could see the rise and fall of his shoulders quicken. His eyes darted across the room, scanning exits like a man looking for an escape route. The judge, a veteran of many high-profile trials, didn't miss a beat. He kept his eyes locked on Diddy, his expression sharpening. He had seen this before, the signs of someone on the verge of losing control. Diddy shifted in his chair, again and again, clearly unable to get comfortable. Then, with trembling fingers, he loosened his tie and leaned into his legal team, whispering something so urgently that 3 attorneys huddled around him immediately. But Prince's voice didn't stop. He spoke a gathering in Beverly Hills. He named the date, March 9, 2016, and gave a full address that had already been documented by prosecutors. The moment Prince uttered that address, Diddy stood up, not gradually, not cautiously. He shot up from the seat like he'd been yanked by an unseen force. The 4 security officers stationed behind the fence table instantly stepped forward. Diddy's lawyers reacted in panic. One grabbed at his suit jacket, trying to pull him back down. Another jumped in between him and the jury box. A third whispered furiously in his ear, trying to calm him. But the recording continued. Prince described walking into a room. What he saw there matched the prosecution's charges in chilling detail. That's when it happened. Diddy snapped. "That's a lie," he shouted, his voice booming across the courtroom. He wasn't even there. That never happened. The outburst was so jarring. A reporter in the front row jumped in her seat. Shock rippled through the room. This wasn't a whisper. This was a public explosion. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order! Order in this court," he commanded, his voice sharp and unforgiving. Then, fixing Diddy with a cold glare, he said, "Mr. Combs, control yourself or I will hold you in contempt." The room went dead silent. The only sound was Prince's voice, still playing softly from the speakers. Calm, measured, unstoppable to eye in that moment. The prosecution strategy became crystal clear. They had held this recording back on purpose. They waited until day 3, when Diddy had let down his guard, when he believed he had control. Then they dropped the one piece of evidence powerful enough to shatter his carefully constructed image. And it worked, flawlessly.
The other things that the Diddy's team tried to do was show how they had breaks, and she was with Michael B. Jordan and was with Kid Cudi for a minute. But during that time period, she was still having freak-offs with Diddy, and I think that was them trying to show, this wasn't a controlling thing. Here she was, hooking up with other people. She just was into the freak-offs.
I kind of buy that, to be honest.
So...
she's out of the freak-off scene. She is... when she's with Kid Cudi, or allegedly with Michael B. Jordan, she's kind of out of the freak-off if she wants to be. So why do you keep going back? Yeah. I know it's kind of like a mental, she still loves Diddy. Diddy was jealous about her.
Oh, yeah, because that was another thing that the prosecutors were trying to do, is show that, that they had a very jealous relationship. She would get jealous when he's with Kid Cudi. Also, Kim Porter, Cassie would be jealous of Kim Porter.
Right.
Trying to show that, Cassie, you were in love with this guy. That's why you were jealous.
Right.
So, this was a real relationship.
It was just interesting to see Chris Brown.
I mean, he's always coming up somewhere.
He is.
Chris Brown.
All right, final story of the week. Justin Bieber is not a victim of Diddy. So this was one of those rumors or whatever that was flying around in the months leading up to the trial. And to be honest, there was quite a few rumors flying around, was there minors involved? Says if no other celebrity was part of freak-offs, why are they in hiding? Are they in hiding, though?
I don't think they're in hiding. I just think other celebrities didn't want to insert themselves. No one wants to be tied to Diddy one way or the other.
Even if you're at a white party, just having a lot of fun at one of Diddy's white parties, you don't want to be linked in any way.
No, and that's why all those people, there's a few people I think that have come forward and been I didn't see any of this freak-off stuff.
The star witness from beyond the grave once the judge restored order. The prosecution resumed playing the recording. And what came next sent an even deeper chill through the room. This wasn't just a celebrity's opinion or a vague warning. Prince laid out 3 specific allegations, each more damning than the last. The courtroom leaned in as a full weight of his words settled like concrete in the air. "I've been documenting this for years," Prince's voice said, steady and deliberate. "Dates, times, names, what happened? I keep everything. I've been doing this since 2007. Legal experts in the room exchanged stunned glances. This wasn't gossip. This was methodical, detailed, systematic documentation from one of the most meticulous and private minds in the music industry. The first bombshell hit hard. Prince described a disturbing pattern of behavior at Diddy's infamous parties. "These aren't just parties," he said. "They're orchestrated setups. I watched him isolate young artists from their managers and teams. Get them alone. He'd put them in situations they didn't know how to say no to." Prince named a specific Beverly Hills property and described the layout of a certain room. His description perfectly matched the floor plans the prosecution had already submitted into evidence. Then came his voice again, this time filled with quiet urgency. "They come thinking this is their moment, their big break. But by the time they understand what's really going on, they're already trapped. I've personally seen this happen to at least 7 different artists." Gasps and whispered curses rippled through the gallery. Diddy stared straight ahead, pale and motionless. Then came the second blow, a direct confrontation between Prince and Diddy himself. "I went in after the Grammys in 2016, Prince said. "I told him I knew what was happening. I told him it had to stop." There was a beat of silence in the recording. He laughed, looked me dead in the eye and said, "You might be Prince, but you're not untouchable." I took that as a threat. Diddy's legal team, clearly blindsided, scrambled to take notes, their pens scratching furiously against yellow legal pads. But the third allegation may have been the most devastating of all. Prince described financial transactions, undeniable paper trails. He named specific figures, $2 million paid to one individual, $1.3 million to another, amounts that match the financial evidence already submitted earlier in the trial. I've seen the payments, Prince said. I've seen the NDAs they signed. This isn't just celebrities behaving badly. This is organized, calculated, protected. By now, even the judge's expression had shifted from stern neutrality to something closer to disbelief. Prince's recording wasn't just damning. It was surgically precise, the kind of insider knowledge that could only come from someone deep within the industry's inner circle. Then Prince's voice took a darker turn, quieter, almost vulnerable. I'm recording this because I'm scared, he confessed. I'm scared to speak out. People like him, the system protects them. No one wants to believe what really happened behind closed doors. And then came the final blow, the closing words that left the courtroom frozen. If anything happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people. This isn't just about me. It's about protecting everyone who never got the chance to speak. Then, silence and no outro music. No static, just the soft hum of courtroom equipment and the sound of people forgetting to breathe. And one moved. No one whispered. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Prince had just become the prosecution's most powerful witness, and he did it from beyond the grave. The lead prosecutor stepped away from the speaker system, turned to the judge, and said simply, "No further questions, Your Honor." She didn't need to say anything else. Prince had spoken for himself, for the silenced, and for a truth too long buried.
You know, they have their notebooks in their hand. They're coming in, they're very alert, and I think this is one of those testimonies where you have no choice but to pay attention and almost be flabbergasted, obviously, at some of what you're hearing, because it's not only just insight into somebody's sex life, but the details are disturbing at times, especially during that prosecution testimony when we saw some of the alleged abuse, or we saw pictures of her after a beating of some kind, according to her. But the jurors are definitely paying attention. I don't see anyone that's not keeping their focus on Cassie Ventura, and also I noticed them taking notes a lot of times.
And the children, as they were exiting court yesterday, 2 of the girls were seen crying. How emotional have they been in court?
Again, I cannot imagine if that was my father or somebody close to me up there and having to hear details of their sex life. Those are young women. They lost their mother, one of them, the twins. So no one can probably quite understand what it is that they're going through, but I think that's something that you think about on both sides, you know, to look at Alex Fine, which is Cassie Ventura's husband, and think about him having to listen to all that's being said about the type of woman that Cassie Ventura was versus the person that's expecting, you know, their 3rd child together now. So whether it's Combs's family or Ventura's family that's there to support her, her brother and her husband, Alex Fine, I think it's difficult on both sides. Seen him taking notes from the beginning. I see him put his glasses on. He gets very close to the screen when they're reading some of those text messages. So he's paying attention.
Now, Ventura confirmed that she and Combs had conversations about a swingers lifestyle, but that the freak-offs, they were very different.
Yeah, so she talked about this idea where I guess Combs wanted her to watch him have sex with another woman. She said that happened 2 or 3 times, but that he mentioned it frequently.
Kim Porter came up today in testimony. What was the significance there?
The defense said early on that this case would be about infidelity, love, and jealousy. And this is where they brought that up today when they brought up Kim Porter's name. The defense asked Cassie Ventura, are you jealous, or were you jealous of Kim Porter? And Ventura sort of contemplated, but did get to this moment where she said, knowing that Combs spent holidays with his family, which meant with Porter, did bother her. And she admitted that. They also pointed out that there was testimony where she talked about being insanely jealous overall as a girlfriend. So, yeah.
We're hearing the judge wants Cassie off the stand tomorrow. Will the prosecution and the defense get equal time?
Yeah, as long as there aren't any additional motions, I think that is the goal, to have her off the stand by tomorrow.
Why do you think that? What's the reasoning behind wanting her off the stand tomorrow?
In the very beginning, Rachel, they told us that she would likely be on that stand 2 to 3 days. So here we are.
The day everything collapsed. Diddy's trial shattered by a ghost in just 7 seconds. Diddy's courtroom outburst changed everything as Prince's recording came to an end. Chaos quietly erupted, starting with Diddy's legal team. His lead attorney stood up instantly, his voice tight with urgency. Your Honor, we request a 15-minute recess to consult with our client. But the desperation in his tone was impossible to miss. The judge didn't even blink. Request denied. The court will continue with the presentation of evidence. He turned, locking eyes with Diddy. I expect no further disruptions. For Diddy's elite legal team, lawyers who normally command the courtroom and charge /$1, $500 an hour, this was unfamiliar territory. They were being shut down. Hard. Across the aisle, the prosecution remained composed, but you could see it in their body language. Their plan had worked. The lead prosecutor gave nothing away, but her second chair couldn't help a faint smile when Diddy erupted. A single glance between them confirmed it. Their trap had been perfectly timed, and it had just sprung. Behind me, a legal analyst whispered to his colleague, "This is catastrophic." The defense built him up as calm, controlled. That image just blew up in front of the jury. And the judge didn't let the moment pass quietly till he addressed the jurors directly. You are to disregard the defendant's outburst in your deliberations. Emotional reactions are not evidence. But every seasoned trial attorney knows it's impossible to unsee something like that. Point. 3 jurors sat frozen, eyes fixed on Diddy, watching his every movement with new suspicion. Court security wasn't taking any chances. 2 extra officers moved in, one positioning himself just feet from Diddy's chair, close enough to intervene if things spiraled again. The rest of the day was a slow, brutal unraveling. The prosecution pressed forward, playing evidence that lined up perfectly with everything Prince had said. Financial records, wire transfers, the exact dollar amounts Prince had named. Then came screenshots of text messages from multiple witnesses, describing events that mirrored Prince's testimony. Diddy sat motionless, beads of sweat visible on his forehead. His designer suit, once pristine, clung awkwardly to him. His hands trembled so badly that an attorney handed him a legal pad, likely to give him something to hold. He refused water when offered. By mid-afternoon, he looked sick. His face, once defiant and composed, now seemed hollow, exposed. Then came the final blow of the day. The Diddy's team filed an emergency motion to have Prince's recording thrown out, arguing it was potentially manipulated and unverifiable since the witness was deceased. Legal experts in Courtroom immediately recognized a move for what it was: damage control. Pure panic. Emergency motions like that aren't routine. They're last resort tactics filed when a legal team has run out of options as people filed out Courtroom. Analysts were already calling it. This is the moment people will point to as the day the case was lost, said one veteran legal correspondent. Before the recording, Diddy looked like a man falsely accused. After it, he looked like a man exposed by the truth. A veteran court reporter summed it up best. I've covered hundreds of celebrity trials. I've never seen someone's case collapse so completely, so fast. But make no mistake, this wasn't coincidence. It was strategy that sources close to the prosecution confirmed that Prince's recording had been authenticated over 4 painstaking months. They hired not 1, but 3 independent forensic audio experts to ensure the tape was untouched. They knew the defense would challenge it, so they made it bulletproof. Even more calculated was the timing. Insiders revealed the prosecution studied Diddy's behavior in previous court appearances. A pattern emerged. For the first 48 hours, he was composed. After that, cracks started showing. So they waited. They let him settle into the false belief that he was in control. They built the case like architects. Slow, methodical. They began with foundational witnesses to establish timelines, locations, and context. Then came the structural supports, bank records, communication logs. When Prince's recording finally played, every single thing he said aligned with evidence the jury had already seen. They rehearsed everything, even the timing of the playback. Staffers confirmed that the team practiced how to remain neutral as the tape played. They even choreographed how to glance at Diddy the moment the most damning claims were made. But the masterstroke wasn't just in Courtroom. It was outside it. Day 3 of a high-profile trial is typically when media coverage begins to wane. Cable networks shift focus. Viewership dips. Dropping this bombshell on day 3 wasn't an accident. It was how they reignited the narrative. This wasn't just about convincing a jury. It was about shaping public perception. And they succeeded as the courtroom emptied. The difference between both sides couldn't have been more stark. The prosecution walked out calm, organized, exchanging quiet nods. Meanwhile, Diddy's team was in disarray, huddling, whispering, flipping through legal books and making urgent phone calls. The power dynamic had shifted completely. One day ago, Diddy was a billionaire mogul defending his reputation. Now he was a man watching it fall apart, thanks to the voice of someone who could no longer be threatened, silenced, or manipulated. Prince had spoken with surgical precision, and with just one record, he did what years of lawsuits and accusations had failed to do: crack the unshakable image of Sean Diddy Combs. The trial resume is tomorrow, but everything has changed now. The question buzzing to the industry isn't just about Diddy's future, it's this: what else is in Prince's vault? Who else did he name? What other recordings still exist, waiting to be heard